Hey everybody, welcome back to Trey's Models. On this edition we're going to do the Panzer IV. The Panzer IV was developed in late 1930, somewhere around 1936. The A model version went in production in 1937, and it was in continuous development throughout the hostilities, being the longest produced tank that Germany fielded during. Okay, this is the 1/32nd scale monogram release of the Panzer IV, which is kind of confusing because the bottom of the hull has a Revell 1970 stamp on it. Max over at Max's Models did a great deep dive into the history of the Monogram and Revell lines. We'll put a link down at the bottom if anybody's interested in looking at that. It's really interesting. The basic hull construction's pretty simple. I did deviate a little bit. It started from the back and worked my way forward just because the front faceplate doesn't really want to completely fit snug if you try to do it from the front to the back. There's not a whole lot of guide to where that exactly goes, but tape it down real good while the glue dries and the fit issue is not bad at all. Alright, after the whole assembly, we primed it and then came back and shot it with some desert tan. Okay, after we got the road wheels and the drives all painted up in desert yellow, had to come back and paint the rubber parts of the road wheels. And for the first time, I'm using some Vallejo black gray. And must say it laid down really nice after I cut it about 50% with some distilled water. Real easy to work with. I'm liking it. Okay, I'm wanting to do this build out of box without any aftermarket stuff at all. So that means dealing with the vinyl tracks. And I haven't dealt with vinyl tracks in 20 plus years. So the best thing I think to do is clean them up really good with some denatured alcohol. And then I came back with some AK panel liner. This is the black. I figured since the tracks are already almost black anyway, this has a little tinge of a metallic kind of a gray to it and would be a good base to start. And since it's thinned, pretty watery, and it's an enamel base, I figured it'd give a good bite down into the vinyl. Okay, before the AK panel liner completely set up, I had pre-ground some rust colored pastels and completely went around and saturated the tracks with this. And it looks a bit extreme, but the thing with the pastels is when you hit them with the dull coat, which I'll do later, it does lessen the effect. So it should tone it down and be a reasonable look before we put on the final weathering. Okay, for the camo scheme, we're going with the tricolor that we found a picture of circa 1943 in Italy. I tried to replicate the colors as best I could, mixing them by eye with some different tones of Model Master enamels. For spraying through the airbrush, I reduced the Model Master enamels with an automotive base coat reducer by 50%. You have to be careful using these automotive products. Sometimes they can be a bit aggressive. So if you're going to go that path, I would suggest shooting them on a test piece that you're not going to use. Make sure you don't have any adverse reactions. Also, with the stuff, the chemicals in it are pretty gnarly. You want to use the proper respirators and make sure you're shooting in a ventilated area. Wear gloves and the proper safety equipment. Don't be freehanding it barehand like I'm doing here. Not a good idea. After looking at some reference pictures, I decided that the desert sand color that I had on there was a bit off. So I went with some artist oil, lighter color. It's a sand, just a shade or two lighter. And I diluted it quite a bit with some mineral spirits and just came back and just softened the tones up a little bit, blending it in between the two other camo colors and kind of harmonizing the tricolor together, and at the same time toning down the off color that I had on there for the desert sand. Okay, on to the dot filters. These are the oils that I used. This technique's pretty common. Panzer 36 does a real awesome video about it, as well as Night Shift. He uses them as well. That's where I picked up the technique from. Appreciate the tips, guys. Okay, for the dot filters, just randomly placing dots across the surface of the vehicle. We'll let them sit for a few minutes and come back with a wide brush that's slightly damp with some white spirits, and just in a downward pulling motion, just streak the dots. Clean your brush off frequently, add a little bit more spirit, and play with it and get until you get the effect you're after. You can make it as pronounced as you want or tone it down as little as you want. That's the nice part about using the oils over this stuff. Okay, back to the vinyl tracks. After the paint is set up and dried, I did dull coat them. I came back with the silver pencil and just lightly scuffed over the cleats on the bottom of the track to give them that worn look, like they've been riding over and knocking the paint off of them. Okay, somewhere along the lines, I misplaced the videos showing how I did the chipping. But basically, what I did with the chipping was came with a light gray around the worn areas and hit it very slightly, and then came back with another tone of a lighter color, gray, and highlighted the chips. May have overdone it a little bit, but onto the actual weathering, and I grind my own pastels. And we're going with a good dusting of a light yellow and a tan color. And again, with the pastels, put them on heavy because the dull coat's going to knock the effect down quite a bit. I actually had to come back and apply it 2 more times to get it to the effect that I wanted. Okay, so the specs for the Panzer Kampfwagen 4H, with a weight of 25 tons, a crew of 5. It had the Maybach HL120 TRM 12-cylinder engine producing 296 horsepower, giving it a max speed of 25.6 miles per hour on hard surface. Cross country, it cut down to like 12 miles per hour. The transmission was a synchronized ZF SSG 77 6-speed with reverse. Armament was a 7.5 centimeter Kampfwagen cannon, and it also had 2 7.92 machine guns, one firing from the coax, one firing from the front position. The variants were the Stug 4, no turret. It was basically a self-propelled tank killer. the Jag Panzer IV, which was very similar, the Brumbar, or the Stern Panzer IV, the Nashorn, and also the Werberven and the Ausbin. Both of those were anti-aircraft platforms, and we'll be doing builds on those later on as well. One of my previous videos on the channel was the Lost Collection, and the picture of the Panzer IV here is the same Panzer that we just went over. 40 years ago I built this kit. So this was one of the reasons why I wanted to revisit this kit, and one of the reasons why I wanted to do it out of the box, because the aftermarket stuff 40 years ago just wasn't available. So this has been kind of a trip down memory lane for me, and replacing a piece of my Lost Collection that was kind of sentimental. This was, I think, my second tank build ever, and you can see my pretty lame attempt at a Desert 109 there to the left as well. But it's all part of the learning curve, and it's been an enjoyable journey. So it was fun to do this build and travel back down this road. And I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Y'all be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next one.